It began with a single post, anonymous, cryptic, and strangely poetic. On January 4, 2012, an image appeared on 4chan's board, the chaotic and unpredictable corner of the internet known for memes, trolling, and digital anarchy. But this post was different. It wasn't a meme or a joke. It was a message. Hello, we are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. And beneath those words, a black image with hidden code. No username, no signature, no explanation. Just the strange seal of an organization no one had ever heard of before. Cicada 3301. At first, people thought it was an elaborate prank. Maybe a marketing campaign. But those who decided to look closer, to really analyze that image, discovered something that changed internet history. Hidden inside the image file was a cipher. A clue, the first of many. Those who decoded it found a series of enigmatic references to ancient texts, mathematical riddles, and philosophical writings. The kind of things that only someone deeply versed in literature, cryptography, and technology could begin to understand. The internet had seen viral puzzles before, but this was something else. This was deliberate, complex, and hauntingly intelligent. Within hours, communities on Reddit, 4chan, and various forums began to form. Hundreds of users teamed up, trying to solve what quickly became known as the Cicada puzzle. The first breakthrough came when someone realized that the image contained a steganographic code, data hidden within data. When decoded, it led to a URL, and on that URL, another cipher. It was like falling into a digital rabbit hole. Each clue pointed to the next. One code led to a book, which led to a phone number, which, when dialed, played a recorded message. The voice on the other end was mechanical, distorted, almost robotic. Very good. You have done well. There are 3 prime numbers associated with this image. The message gave yet another clue, leading not to a virtual destination, but to something much more shocking. Physical location. Across the world, from Warsaw to Seoul, from Sydney to Paris, people began finding QR codes pasted on telephone poles and walls, all marked with the same cicada emblem. This was no longer just an online puzzle. It was global, real, physical, and whoever was behind it had planned everything with frightening precision. Imagine the coordination, the resources, the vision it would take to orchestrate something like this. Thousands of participants, dozens of countries, clues involving literature, number theory, cryptography, cybersecurity, philosophy, and art, all woven into a single unified challenge. Whoever Cicada 3301 was, they weren't amateurs. As the first wave of solvers advanced, the mystery deepened. The clues referenced everything from William Blake's poetry to Mayan numerology, runic symbols, and the works of Fibonacci. One riddle, when solved, even revealed a quote from the Book of Genesis, as if the creators wanted to blend the sacred with the digital, to merge ancient mysticism with modern code. And that's when people began asking, what is Cicada 3301 really looking for? Some believed it was a recruitment campaign, maybe for the CIA, NSA, or MI6, a way for intelligence agencies to find brilliant minds hidden in the anonymity of the internet. Others were convinced it was the work of a secret society, one that used cryptography to recruit members for some greater mission, digital freedom, enlightenment, or perhaps a control. But there was another, darker theory, that Cicada 3301 wasn't human at all, that it was an AI, a self-evolving entity testing humanity, measuring who could think like a machine, who could understand its logic. Theories multiplied, speculation turned into obsession, and in forums around the world, sleepless solvers spent nights staring at code, listening to distorted audio, and tracing QR codes in dark alleys, chasing the impossible promise that, at the end of it all, they'd find the truth. But there was a problem. No one who reached the end ever came back to tell their story. Some said they received an email from Cicada 3301, congratulating them and inviting them into a private, encrypted chat room. Then nothing. They vanished from forums, deleted their accounts, and disappeared entirely from the community. Every time someone tried to contact a supposed winner, the messages went unanswered. Every lead cold. It was as if they'd been swallowed by the very code they were trying to solve. By early February 2012, the puzzle abruptly ended. The official Cicada 3301 Twitter account, which had been posting clues, simply stated, "We have found the individuals we sought. The journey ends here." And just like that, the world's most complex internet mystery went silent. No one knew who had been chosen. No one knew what they had been chosen for. But one thing was certain: Cicada 3301 had proven something. That hidden beneath the chaos of the web, there were minds capable of building a global, perfectly synchronized puzzle that blurred the lines between digital and physical worlds. A puzzle that wasn't about money or fame. It was about intellect, mystery, and control. And it was only the beginning, because 1 year later, almost to the day, a new message appeared. Same symbol, same tone, same cryptic voice calling out from the digital void. Hello again. Our search continues. The second Cicada puzzle had begun. And this time, the stakes were even higher. What was Cicada 3301 truly searching for? A group of geniuses to join a cause? A digital brotherhood of thinkers? Or something far more sinister? Something buried deep beneath layers of encrypted data, waiting to be unlocked by the minds clever enough to find it? The deeper the internet dug, the darker the theories became. And as we move into the next phase of this story, we'll uncover not only what Cicada's puzzles contained, but how they changed those who dared to follow them. Because once you enter Cicada's maze, you don't come out the same. A year had passed. The internet had almost forgotten Cicada 3301, or at least most people had moved on. But for a select group of obsessed individuals, it never truly ended. They couldn't let it go. They had seen too much. They had stared into the abyss of encrypted symbols and hidden messages, and they felt that something enormous, still lingered out there, unfinished. And then, on January 4th, 2013, the impossible happened. Another message appeared. Same font, same tone, same strange cicada emblem. Hello again. Our search continues. The second Cicada puzzle had begun. This time, things felt different, sharper, smarter, more ambitious. The 2013 puzzle wasn't just a repetition, it was an evolution. Those who had participated in the first challenge knew what to expect. Encryption, steganography, obscure literature, and global scavenger hunts. But Cicada had learned from the first round. Now the clues were deeper, more layered, more human, and yet less predictable. The image posted on 4chan contained, once again, a hidden cipher. When decoded, it revealed a Tor address, a site hidden within the dark web. And there, the familiar greeting awaited the new solvers. Welcome back. You have done well to come this far. It was as if the entity behind Cicada was watching, evaluating, testing. But this time, something unsettling was different. Cicada wasn't just testing intelligence. It was testing loyalty. In the dark corners of Reddit and IRC chat rooms, the new generation of solvers gathered again. They shared theories, exchanged clues, and tried to stay ahead of the rapidly unfolding puzzle. Many were veterans from the first year. They knew what to expect, or at least thought they did. But soon, they began noticing a pattern. This new puzzle was intensely personal. It referenced the previous year's winners, hinted at secret graduation steps, and contained subtle warnings about those who are not ready. One message read, "Those who wish to proceed must demonstrate discipline and discretion. Public collaboration is discouraged." In other words, stop sharing. Cicada no longer wanted a community solving the mystery. It wanted individuals. This marked a turning point in the story. The first puzzle had been public, open, almost playful. But the second one felt like an initiation ritual. And soon, even the best codebreakers started disappearing again. Some participants reported reaching encrypted chat rooms, invitation-only servers hidden deep within Tor, accessible only through special authentication keys provided by Cicada itself. Those who made it inside described a surreal experience. A silent room, no usernames, no greetings, just encrypted text appearing and disappearing, as if sent by an unseen moderator. The messages were short, philosophical, sometimes poetic, discussing freedom, privacy, censorship, and knowledge. They referenced Gnosticism, John Locke, and cryptographic manifestos, especially one line that stood out. Liberty is the right to know, and knowledge must be protected by code. It became clear that Cicada 3301 wasn't just a puzzle. It was a movement, a digital ideology hidden within layers of encryption. But what exactly was its purpose? Some believed Cicada was assembling a group of cyber idealists, individuals who would use encryption to fight for digital privacy and freedom in an age of surveillance. Others thought it was forming a cult, a group guided by cryptic philosophy, blending technology and spirituality. But the truth was even stranger. A handful of supposed insiders later claimed that those who passed the tests were invited to work on private, encrypted projects, tasks related to secure communications, open source tools, and data privacy. One anonymous participant, calling himself Marcus Warner, later came forward in an interview. He said Cicada 3301 contacted him after solving several stages. They wanted people who believed in privacy, freedom, and cryptography. They said they were building something bigger than any of us could imagine. But even Warner admitted he never met anyone from Cicada face-to-face. All communication was encrypted. All tasks were digital. And one day, it just stopped. No warning, no goodbye, just silence. Meanwhile, outside the inner circle, the world kept searching. Online forums filled with speculation. Some users thought they had uncovered a recruitment arm of the intelligence community, a stealth method for agencies like the NSA or MI6 to identify prodigies. But that didn't quite fit. If Cicada was a government operation, why use Tor? Why promote encryption and anonymity, the very things intelligence agencies often tried to weaken? Others suggested Cicada was connected to hacktivist groups, perhaps an elite branch of Anonymous or WikiLeaks, testing who was skilled enough to join a digital resistance. Then there were those who went full conspiracy, claiming Cicada was tied to occult symbolism, secret societies, even AI experiments. One user noticed that the cicada insect, which spends 17 years underground before emerging, could symbolize awakening, rebirth, or hidden knowledge. Maybe they thought the 3301 wasn't random either. Some speculated it corresponded to a prime number, or a Masonic cipher, or even the year of a hidden prophecy. The theories multiplied faster than they could be debunked. And then came the most disturbing moment yet. In late 2013, a small group of solvers discovered a hidden PGP signature, the unique cryptographic fingerprint that verified authenticity, claiming to be from Cicada 3301. It contained a message: beware false paths. Only the true path leads to enlightenment. And then another one: the light will come from darkness. The tone had shifted. What started as an intellectual challenge now felt spiritual. But spiritual in a way that merged digital code with mysticism, a strange religion for the information age. Some began to believe Cicada was training people not just to solve puzzles, but to think differently, to unlearn patterns, to decode reality itself. The line between game and indoctrination became increasingly blurry. As 2013 turned into 2014, Cicada disappeared again. No more posts, no more puzzles, just silence, and thousands of people left behind, wondering what it all meant. Then, in January 2014, a third message appeared. We do not recruit anymore. Do not look for us. It was signed with the same PGP key as before, confirming it was truly them. And then, nothing. The account went dark. The forums quieted. The world moved on. But the legend of Cicada 3301 only grew. To this day, no one knows who was behind it. Theories continue to swirl. Government black projects, hacktivist movements, cyber anarchists, or even a handful of genius pranksters who wanted to test how far curiosity could go. Yet the more one studies the puzzle's design, the harder it is to believe it was random. Every clue was too calculated, too intricate, too perfectly orchestrated. To build Cicada, one would need experts in cryptography, steganography, philosophy, linguistics, network engineering, and psychology, working in complete secrecy. And all of them would need to share a single vision: to awaken humanity through the code. Years later, some of Cicada's original solvers claimed they still received encrypted messages. Nothing threatening, just guidance. Quotes from old philosophers. Lines of code. Binary messages that, when translated, formed phrases like, Truth is free. The key is within. Knowledge belongs to the seeker. Whoever or whatever Cicada was, it hadn't disappeared completely. It had just gone deeper underground, like the insect it was named after. Waiting, watching, evolving. But the mystery doesn't end here. Because after years of silence, a strange document appeared. One that seemed to reveal Cicada's true ideology. Was it an authentic manifesto from the original creators? Or the work of imposters trying to hijack the myth? In the next chapter, we'll uncover the Liber Primus, the so-called Book of the First, a text written entirely in runes, filled with cryptic philosophy and hidden messages. A book that many believe holds the final answer to Cicada 3301, or perhaps its most dangerous secret. When Cicada 3301 first surfaced, people expected riddles and red herrings, clever tricks dragged from the playbook of internet cults and ARGs. What they did not expect was a text that would become an obsession, the Liber Primus, the first book. The moment its name surfaced in the puzzle threads, a new kind of hunger spread across the web. Liber Primus promised something the earlier clues never had. A philosophy, perhaps even a secret doctrine, written in a cipher no one could immediately decode. The Liber Primus arrived like a relic, scanned pages, hand-drawn runes, and a layout that looked both ancient and obsessively modern. Its script was an invented alphabet, a mesh of runic characters mixed with stylized Latin letters, and a handful of pages were supplied in encrypted computer files. For months, the runes resisted every standard method. Frequency analysis, machine learning attempts, crowdsourced rune cross-references, nothing rendered an obvious translation. And that difficulty became part of its appeal. Here was something real to crack, a problem that demanded time, discipline, and real scholarship. Communities organized. They were not the chaotic threads of a single forum any longer but networks. Slack-like channels, private IRC rooms, and multilingual teams forming to comb through each glyph. Cryptographers compared the runes to obscure alphabets. Philologists searched for syntax. Mathematicians fed pages into custom programs searching for patterns. Volunteers learned Old Norse, Old English, and Latin. Students of comparative religion checked for echoes of Gnosticism, Hermeticism, and Theosophy. Everyone looked for a foothold, and the book offered tiny footholds. Repeated sequences, mirrored symbols, and a few marginal annotations in plain English that read like aphorisms. Those marginal lines were the first hint of the book's personality. Short sentences showed up at the edges of pages. Do not seek to be led. Truth must be purified by fire. The cipher is also a map. They read less like instructions and more like riddled commandments. The tone felt simultaneously archaic and intimate. It spoke of enlightenment but with a militant edge. For many solvers, those marginalia were irresistible. They suggested Liber Primus was not just a puzzle, it was a test of temperament. The first partial breakthroughs came in odd places. A linguist in Brazil noticed that certain rune clusters correlated with punctuation marks in Icelandic manuscripts. An MIT grad student found that page layout mirrored sacred geometry used in medieval manuscripts. Combining those clues, teams slowly mapped some runes to phonetic sounds. With effort and the promise of a key, a few lines of English began to emerge from the darkness. Fragments of aphorisms and metaphors that hinted at self-governance, privacy, and the power of code as a shield. Some lines were chilling. To be free, first unlearn. Others were banal, almost pastoral. Guard knowledge as you would guard fire. Mixed together, the fragments painted a strange portrait. Liber Primus was part manual, part manifesto, part ritual. As translations trickled out, the community split. One camp argued Liber Primus described an ethical philosophy, a kind of cypherpunk stoicism that valued privacy and autonomous infrastructure above all else. Another camp suspected darker leanings. The language of tests and purity, they warned, had the scent of initiation ritual. There were sections that read like instructions for personal transformation. Journal prompts, meditative practices, tasks designed to force participants to act without witnesses. Critics said it sounded less like a roadmap for digital liberty and more like the first stage of cult formation. Isolate the thinker, then insist they complete rituals that sever ties to old life. The ambiguity was deliberate. Liber Primus never spelled out an organization nor offered a contact. Instead, it offered provocations, challenges to create, to maintain anonymity, to build secure systems. Where it was most prescriptive, it was about method, how to learn, how to teach, how to share encrypted knowledge without leaving a trail. It spoke in dual registers, the mystical and the pragmatic, and that duality created an irresistible tension. Was the book a philosophical provocation, a handbook for building resilient networks, or a recruitment manual for something altogether different? Beyond the text itself, Liber Primus produced people. Teams of solvers became subcultures. Elderly cryptographers found renewed purpose teaching younger coders. Language hobbyists learned runic alphabets because the book demanded it. A handful of mathematicians produced software tools designed explicitly for Liber Primus analysis. The community created glossaries, lexicons, and translation projects that read like open-source movement artifacts. Pseudonymous leaders surfaced, offering crowdsourced translations that often contradicted each other and fueled drama. Then came the disappearances. As people claimed to approach fuller translations, posts went silent. Accounts gone. IRC nicknames vanished like cast members leaving a play. Rumors spread. Those who had passed certain tests had been contacted privately. Others had experienced doxing attempts and erased their online presence for safety. At least 2 solvers published a final message suggesting they had been invited to an offline workshop and would not speak afterward. Skeptics argued that the disappearances were staged, the work of trolls, or simply burnout. But to the community, it felt like the book was a gatekeeper, and only a few were trusted to pass through. Parallel to these human stories, ripples of institutional interest arrived. Academic circles took notice. Papers were drafted about Liber Primus as an example of emergent cultural production in the digital age, an artifact with the force to catalyze learning, community, and obsession. Intelligence circles noticed too. Anonymous leaks hinted that security agencies examined the book for any sign it was a recruitment tool for adversaries. Could a loosely coordinated group of cryptographers and hobbyists be funneled into a political cause? Or might the book itself be a safe space primer to teach digital hygiene? Politically, Liber Primus sat on a fault line. Its promotion of encrypted life aligned with civil liberty advocates. Its method of secretive recruitment made governments nervous. Yet it also attracted artists and hackers uninterested in ideology. They saw a text that required cross-disciplinary work, the kind of creative collaboration that had been lost to hyperspecialization. Some called Liber Primus a virus for curiosity, designed to spread the skill to think in secrecy. Authenticity controversies escalated. Fake pages of Liber Primus surfaced, some of them uploaded by pranksters eager to trick the community. Each fake required verification, and processes arose within forums. Checksum-style confirmations, PGP signatures, corroborating scans. The authentic pages seemed to possess a coherency the fakes lacked, an internal logic and aesthetic rigor. Those who experienced the real thing described a strange thrill, the sense of touching an artifact that had been deliberately crafted to both conceal and reveal. Midway through the translation efforts, a new file appeared, a partial index, listing a sequence of tasks and ethical precepts. It read like an initiation. Build a key no server can replicate. Teach one mind to protect another. Deny your name to history. For some, this list legitimized the idealistic interpretation. Liber Primus was a manual to amplify digital resilience by instructing individuals to train others. For others, the wording, "Deny your name to history," felt more totalizing, hinting at renunciation. The book's most haunting pages were the blanks. Sections intentionally left empty, pages showing only the sigil of the cicada. These absences became loci of speculation. Some argued they were placeholders for future knowledge, waiting for a core group to fill them. Others suggested they were tests of restraint, a prompt to see whether solvers would create answers to fill the silence. Whatever the truth, Liber Primus changed lives. People reported shifts in behavior after extended immersion. More care about metadata, new habits around device usage, a shift from public display to private practice. It taught technical skills, but it also taught a posture, a skepticism of convenience, an appreciation for slow, deliberate learning. In the background, Libertarian forums and privacy conferences began borrowing phrases from the book. Lines of its aphorisms circulated in tweets and manifestos. Then the vanishing silence came. Liber Primus never published a final key. Pages remained encrypted. Its authors, whether one person or many, withdrew. The book that had drawn hundreds into months of study became a relic of an aborted initiation. The last public posts suggested a kind of closure. We have found those we sought, and yet the closet remained open. Unfinished pages lingered, and the community was left with methodology and mysteries instead of definitive answers. Years later, Liber Primus proved to be less a locked door and more a seed. The skills it required, cryptography, cross-disciplinary collaboration, patient study, continued to spread. A generation of hackers, hobbyists, and thinkers cut their teeth on its riddles. Forums that had once been fragmented began to cohere into privacy-preserving projects, tools, and art. Whether Cicada's true goal was recruitment, provocation, or art, one clear outcome remained. Liber Primus had sparked an education movement built on secrecy, rigor, and a strange reverence for the unknown. And still, on cold January nights, threads light up with questions. Someone posts a new cipher, a fresh theory, or an overlooked rune. The book waits, half-translated, its gnomic aphorisms still haunting the margins of the internet. Liber Primus had not been solved. It had been survived. For thousands, that mattered more than explanation. By 2014, Cicada 3301 had become more than just an online puzzle. It was a legend, the kind of mystery that blurred the lines between internet folklore and real-world conspiracy. Those who had followed it since the first image appeared on 4chan now treated it with near-religious reverence. To them, Cicada was not just a game. It was a philosophy, a test of who truly deserved to see the world behind the curtain. And then, it happened again. A new message appeared. The familiar black background, the white text, the cicada symbol. It was unmistakable. Hello. The path continues. The internet erupted. Reddit threads exploded with speculation. The veterans of previous hunts reassembled their old Discord servers, while thousands of new hopefuls flooded in, ready to prove themselves worthy. This time, however, Cicada had evolved. The codes were different, not just technically but philosophically. The tone of the messages had shifted. The new puzzles focused on concepts like individual sovereignty, decentralization, and cryptography that couldn't be broken by governments or corporations. One message read, "Within the light of truth, you will find freedom. Within the chains of control, you will find your cage. Escape." For many, this was no longer just a mystery, it was a manifesto. And the deeper they went, the clearer it became that Cicada was pushing something bigger than just intellectual games. The puzzles again stretched across continents. There were coordinates in Moscow, Tokyo, Berlin, and San Francisco. Posters with the now iconic cicada symbol appeared on lampposts, phone booths, and even inside subway tunnels. Each had a QR code or a hidden cipher embedded within the design. When scanned, they led to encrypted websites hosted on the dark web. Pages that shifted, disappeared, and reappeared like digital ghosts. Those who managed to decrypt the new codes found texts written in the same mysterious Liber Primus runes. But there were also new messages written in plain English, instructions, almost commandments. Those who wish to find us must not only solve but understand. The key is within your mind, not within the code. By now, the community was divided. Some believed Cicada was still a recruitment tool for an elite organization, perhaps the NSA, MI6, or even a private cryptographic think tank. Others were convinced it was a collective of activists promoting digital privacy and anti-surveillance ideals, something like the philosophical offspring of Julian Assange or Edward Snowden. But there were darker theories too. Some claimed Cicada was the front for a cybercult, using puzzles to test loyalty and obedience before indoctrinating new members. A few even suggested that the group was experimenting with psychological conditioning, using prolonged exposure to symbols, language, and reward cycles to reshape how people thought. It wasn't long before YouTube channels and conspiracy forums began connecting Cicada 3301 to secret societies like the Freemasons, the Illuminati, or even ancient Gnostic sections. Their reasoning, the symbolism, the recurring references to enlightenment, rebirth, and truth. The way Cicada encouraged people to free themselves from the system. But to those truly invested, the coders, the cryptographers, the mathematicians, these wild theories were nothing but noise. They knew the real power of Cicada wasn't mystical or conspiratorial. It was intellectual. It was a challenge that united brilliant minds across the world under a single purpose. Then came a chilling discovery. In one of the encrypted files tied to the 2014 puzzle, solvers found references to a term they hadn't seen before: the test. No one knew what it meant. Some assumed it was a new level of the game. Others believed it referred to the final stage, the moment when Cicada decided who was worthy to ascend. A few weeks later, a handful of solvers claimed they had received private messages from anonymous email addresses, signed only with the familiar PGP key, the same one that verified earlier Cicada communications. The message read, "Congratulations, you have proven yourself." Then came a single encrypted link. No one knows what was beyond it. Those who received it never spoke publicly again. Their online identities vanished. Their accounts went silent. Some deleted everything overnight. Years of forum posts, chat logs, and messages, gone without a trace. To outsiders, it seemed like the end of a journey. But to others, it was the beginning of something far stranger. Around this time, rumors spread of a private, invitation-only network, supposedly created by Cicada 3301 initiates. It was said to be a digital society where knowledge was shared freely, where encryption and anonymity ruled, and where no corporation or government had control. Some called it the Garden. Others said it was just a myth, another layer of the puzzle. Meanwhile, the wider internet moved on. The world became louder, more chaotic. Social media exploded, privacy eroded, and the sense of digital mystery began to fade. But every few months, someone new would post a theory claiming to have solved Cicada. Every year, a new image surfaced online pretending to be from the original group, but experts quickly dismissed them as fakes. Then, in 2016, something unexpected happened. A small group of former solvers released a statement claiming they were part of the inner circle. According to them, Cicada was a collective devoted to cryptography, privacy, and liberty, inspired by the cypherpunk movement. They said their ultimate goal was to create software that promoted freedom through encryption. And they claimed the project had succeeded, that the recruits were now working independently, continuing Cicada's ideals. But here's the strange part. Cicada 3301 itself resurfaced just weeks later. The official PGP key appeared again, posting a short but unmistakable message. "Beware false paths. Many pretend to know us. None do. The search continues." In one instant, every confession, every supposed revelation, every leak was erased by doubt. Once again, no one knew what to believe. And just like that, Cicada vanished again. No new puzzles, no new messages, no clues, nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. It wasn't the silence of something forgotten. It was the silence of something watching. Years passed. The internet changed. Forums disappeared. Websites shut down. But every January, on the anniversary of the first Cicada post, people across the world would still refresh 4chan, Reddit, and Twitter, hoping to see the black screen and white text return. "Hello, we are looking for highly intelligent individuals." But it never did. Today, Cicada 3301 stands as one of the most enduring mysteries in the digital age. Not because it was unsolved, but because it might have never been meant to be solved. For some, it was a test of intellect. For others, a recruitment drive. And for a few, it was a message, a warning about the future of the internet and the systems that control it. Perhaps Cicada's true goal was never to find geniuses but to awaken thinkers, to prove that curiosity and collaboration could transcend borders and governments. Or perhaps it was something much darker, an experiment in human psychology, designed to test how far people would go in search of truth. But one thing remains certain: whoever was behind Cicada 3301 understood the human mind. They knew how to blend mystery, philosophy, and fear into a perfect symphony of obsession. They didn't just build a puzzle, they built a myth. And like all great myths, Cicada 3301 refuses to die. Because somewhere out there, in the depths of the internet, there may still be someone watching, waiting, preparing the next test. Maybe the next message has already been written. Maybe it's already online, buried beneath the noise, waiting for the right person to find it. And when they do, the cycle will begin again. The search continues. When the last known cicada message faded into silence, a strange emptiness followed. For those who had spent years decoding, connecting dots, and chasing coordinates across the globe, the disappearance felt like losing a ghost they had been chasing through digital corridors. But what remained wasn't just the puzzle. It was the idea behind it. In the years that followed, the mystery of Cicada 3301 became something larger than its creators could have imagined. It transformed into a mirror, reflecting everything the internet had become. A place of infinite curiosity, paranoia, and boundless human potential. Historians, cryptographers, and journalists have all tried to categorize it. Some describe Cicada as an art project, an avant-garde experiment in digital storytelling that blurred fiction and reality. Others call it the first true example of an ARG, an alternate reality game so complex that even professional analysts couldn't map it entirely. But those who were there from the start know it was more than that. Cicada was a test, not of intelligence alone, but of integrity. Throughout every stage of the puzzles, the organization emphasized values like anonymity, freedom, and the rejection of authority. The Liber Primus wasn't just a book of runes. It was a manifesto disguised as a riddle. One line stood out above all others. Beware those who would deny you access to information, for in their hearts they dream themselves your master. For some, this was just philosophy. For others, it was a battle cry. As time passed, the name Cicada 3301 began to surface in unexpected places. A programmer launching a new encryption app might mention that the code structure was inspired by Cicada. A digital rights activist might quote a line from the Liber Primus at a rally about surveillance. Even documentaries, podcasts, and academic papers began to dissect its legacy. But there was one question no one could answer. Why did Cicada disappear? Some believe it was never meant to last. That once the chosen few had been recruited, the group simply moved underground, its mission complete. Others argue the opposite, that the organization failed, that the internet became too noisy, too commercialized, too corrupt for the purity of Cicada's original message to survive. Then there's a more haunting possibility, that Cicada 3301 was never a group at all. What if it was one person? A single brilliant mind who wanted to prove that even in a world drowning in information, mystery still had power? Someone who knew that curiosity could unite people across cultures, ideologies, and time zones better than any institution ever could. And if that's true, then Cicada succeeded beyond imagination. Because decades later, we're still talking about it. Still searching for meaning. Still waiting for the next message. In an age where almost everything can be explained, Cicada 3301 reminds us of something we've forgotten. The thrill of the unknown. Every piece of the puzzle, from the steganography to the hidden coordinates, spoke to a time when the internet wasn't just about attention, but exploration. It was a frontier, a digital wilderness where discovery meant something. And that's perhaps the greatest irony of all. Cicada 3301 began as a challenge for the few, but it became a myth for the many. The myth evolved. Some online communities now treat Cicada as a kind of digital religion, an origin story for modern internet mysticism. In these circles, solving puzzles isn't about reaching the end. It's about the journey itself. The act of thinking, questioning, and breaking free from the illusion of simple answers. But with myths come imposters. Over the years, countless fake Cicada messages appeared, clever mimicries using the same PGP keys or symbols. Some were designed to scam, others to troll, and some simply to reignite the magic of the mystery. But none of them had that unmistakable signature, the elegance, the precision, the intelligence of the real thing. To those who experienced the original, the fakes felt hollow. The true Cicada had purpose. The silence had meaning. And yet, every year, as technology advances and the digital world grows stranger, new theories emerge. Some claim Cicada was connected to AI research, that its codes were secretly training algorithms for future intelligence systems. Others point to cryptographic breakthroughs that coincidentally appeared just after the puzzles vanished. Could Cicada have been a prototype for decentralized, anonymous collaboration, something that would one day evolve into blockchain culture or encrypted social networks? No one knows. But if it was, it might have been decades ahead of its time. Behind all the encryption, philosophy, and mythology, there were real people. Thousands of them. Students, engineers, linguists, hackers, historians, all united by curiosity. Many of them never found out what Cicada really was. But that didn't matter, because what they did find was a sense of community unlike anything else on the internet. There were nights spent staring at hexadecimal patterns until dawn, days decoding Latin verses, or learning ancient runes just to read a single page of the Liber Primus. One solver once said, "For a moment, it felt like we were part of something bigger than ourselves, like the universe had whispered a secret, and we were the only ones who heard it." That's the power of mystery. It reminds us that knowledge is not just about answers, it's about pursuit. And that's what Cicada left behind. Not a solution, but a spark. So, could Cicada 3301 ever return? Every January, loyal followers refresh their browsers, hoping to see that black image again. Some believe the next puzzle will appear when the world is ready, when enough people have learned to value privacy, curiosity, and truth again. Others think it never left, that it simply went deeper underground, hidden within encrypted layers of the internet that only the worthy can access. And then there are the dreamers who whisper that maybe Cicada isn't an organization or a person, but an idea, a self-replicating meme designed to evolve, to inspire others to create their own puzzles, their own movements. In that sense, Cicada 3301 may already be alive. Through every coder who builds tools for digital freedom, every thinker who questions authority, and every person who dares to look beyond the obvious. If so, then Cicada didn't disappear. It became us. The last verified Cicada post ended with 3 simple words. The search continues. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a reminder, a call to curiosity, a whisper that there's always another layer, another code, another truth waiting to be discovered. And maybe that's why, even now, we still look for it. Not because we expect to find an answer, but because we crave the feeling that comes before it. That moment when the world feels just mysterious enough to believe that something bigger is out there. Cicada 3301 taught us something profound about ourselves. That even in a world dominated by technology, algorithms, and endless information, the human mind still hungers for wonder. We are explorers, born to question, to decode, to imagine. So if you ever find yourself scrolling through an old forum, and you see that familiar image, the black background, the white text, the cicada emblem, don't ignore it, because somewhere, someone might be testing humanity again. And maybe that someone is watching right now. If you've reached this point, you're already part of the few who don't just watch mysteries, you seek them. So here's your challenge. Look deeper, research, explore the unsolved corners of the internet, question everything, because somewhere in the darkness of the web, between myth and truth, the next cicada is waiting to be found. And if you want to keep exploring the world's greatest hidden stories, the conspiracies, the forgotten legends, the truths buried under code, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who loves a good mystery as much as you do. Because in this channel, the search never ends.